Welcome to ACP, the Amazon Connect podcast. This is the show that focuses on Amazon Connect and related technologies. I'm your host, Tom Morgan, introducing episode 2, and today I'm joined by my co-host, AWS Solution Architect and Contact Center Consultant, Alex Baker. Find out more about Cloud Interact by visiting us at cloudinteract.io. Hello, we're back. Alex is back. Hello, Alex.
Hi, Tom.
Hello, and we're back with a new name, which is exciting. We're ACP, the Amazon Connect podcast, which is good. It meant that the pilot episode went well and was well received.
Yeah, we had it was nice to get some great feedback from the first episode. We've got some great ideas of things to discuss in subsequent episodes. We've also got a growing list of potential guests on the podcast as well, which is fantastic. So really positive. Thanks,
everyone. And there's some interesting news about that coming at the end. Okay, you keep an eye on what's been happening in Connect World. There's a couple of things I know you wanted to cover as kind of news items before we get into what we're really going to be talking about this week, which is CRM integration. But yeah, I know you've got some news items you wanted to go through.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. Like you say, I keep an eye on the release notes for Amazon Connect and just generally on LinkedIn and AWS blogs. A couple of things to mention which were released during January, which I don't think we mentioned at all last week. First of all, granular access controls using tagging, and that's now available for historical metrics. Amazon are gradually phasing in this tag-based access control to things within Connect. Previously, if someone had access to historical reports, they could just report on anything within a Connect instance. This release allows the access to be restricted using tagging so that a user can only see data about certain objects. That's probably quite good for use cases like perhaps BPO users. You might have a single Connect instance, but you don't necessarily want anyone within it who has reporting access to be able to report on all of the queues or all of the routing profiles, if that makes sense.
And the tagging is, I guess you can make your own tags, so you can have do you have that kind of complete control about saying, I'm going to make a tag, I'm going to call it, as you say, like, customer services for team A or whatever, put your own reports in it and then put your own people in it.
Yeah, exactly. It's key value pair based. Add your tags to your objects, give your users the corresponding tags to grant them access.
Super. Nice.
And I think we'll probably see more and more of that creeping in over the next couple of months, which is good. It just, like I mentioned, for the BPO type use case, the more that you can give that granular restriction to things, the better it caters for those types of customers, I think.
Got it. Nice.
The next one is better support for Amazon Connect customers who are using Citrix Virtual Desktop or VDI infrastructure environments. You can apparently, and I haven't played with this myself, but you can build a custom CCP soft phone which allows agents to use Connect within the Citrix environment, but it redirects the media from their local desktop directly to Connect. So in theory, it should sort of reduce the number of network hops that real-time voice media has to take.
That could be a real pain. I know, like that stuff, getting the media out of Citrix, because it's the latency problems and stuff. That's nice. Good to see that support. I mean, it still kind of surprises me sometimes that Citrix is such a big deal in the enterprise, but I guess it makes sense from a kind of command and control perspective.
Yeah, agreed. And we see it quite a lot, perhaps not necessarily Citrix, but Azure Virtual Desktop has been quite a big one for one of our customers that we've dealt with this year. So yeah, it's definitely out there being used by some big customers.
Okay, cool.
And the third one I wanted to mention is the supervisor barge in for chat. Supervisors have been able to live monitor and barge into voice contacts for quite a while now. The live monitor came first, then barge was added afterwards. And this brings the same functionality to chat contacts, which just brings that nice feature parity between the voice and the chat channels.
Yeah, that's interesting. Chat's becoming such a important medium. Like, it seems like it's always felt like it's kind of dragged behind voice in its sort of take up everywhere. But it seems like it's becoming more and more a thing.
Definitely. And I think we've got some more interesting insight into handling other channels and maybe handling voice in a slightly different way on the podcast next time.
Yes, that's true. It's interesting the way they've implemented that, because like if you barge in on a chat, like I don't actually know that barging has happened necessarily. So it'd be interesting to see what that feels like as a user, as an end user, because do you even know that, does your agent suddenly get a lot more professional or is it more that you see like, supervisor barge in, hey, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at chat specifically. I know with voice, it's quite seamless to the agent. The agent doesn't know that they're being listened into, so hopefully it doesn't put them off in any way. Obviously, when that barge occurs, they might have that slight surprise of the supervisor joining in on things. Yeah, that's much more obvious to the end user as well. Whereas that you could make, I guess, the chat completely seamless, and just never know. That's interesting. Oh, thanks for keeping us up to date. That's good. So this week we're going to talk about CRM integration stuff and kind of rolling it all the way back. Why do you care? Well, CRMs. I don't know, if you're going to have a contact center, I think the idea, the implication is that you probably have customers, and you probably want to know what those customers are doing. So you're going to have some kind of CRM, right? What are the things I should be thinking about, I guess, if I want to go down the CRM route? Yeah, great question and discussion point. And I think probably the short answer is yes, you're going to need something pretty quickly, right? You're going to need some kind of source of record of who are my customers, what are my interactions with them, and you can then use that data to perhaps try and drive sales where you target sales to particular groups of customers, things like that. I would say that a good CRM, and that's customer relationship management, by the way, it should help a business manage all their customer informations and interactions all in one place. You should be able to remember all of your leads. When those leads turn into customers, you should keep a note of all their preferences, and you can keep an eye on their purchases. And like I said, use it to inform that ongoing relationship with the customer. There is nothing better as a customer than not having to explain yourself again, or knowing that the person, I don't know, it's that personal touch, isn't it? Like I can go into my local butchers or whatever, and they know the stuff I like, but they know that only because I go there, enough times that like they recognize me and they're like, oh, it's scaling that up to a big company, isn't it? It's automating that process so that it's obviously not feasible for agents to remember all that stuff. So it's like putting the stuff in place, and I think quite a lot of it though is process and first and tooling later, like figuring out what you want the experience to be, and then working backwards from okay, if I want to deliver that, what's the information I need to keep hold of, and not only have right at agents' fingertips, right? So it's easy for them to get. And I guess you don't need that. We're going to talk about integrations of CRM, but you could have a CRM separate from your phone system. I presume. Absolutely.
Once you've picked up the phone and figured out who it is, you go and look them up in the CRM, and then and I feel like quite a lot of companies still do that. Like it feels like that, right? You do customer service calls, you identify yourself, and then you have to give them enough information for them to find out who you are in the CRM. Yeah, definitely. And I think traditionally that's how it always used to be. You'd have a phone system and you'd have a CRM, and probably the two didn't interact a great deal, if at all. And as you say, the agent would be talking to the customer, figuring out who it is, and then diving into the CRM to bring back their data. As a customer, as you said, I want to feel valued. That's a real annoyance on customer service calls where you'll go through an IVR or you'll interact with a bot. You will give it some information about the reason for your call, only to be routed to an agent who seemingly has no idea what you're calling for. And you think, why did I waste my time actually telling you when I need to tell the live agent again? And I think being able to leverage some of the integrations that are out there between Amazon Connect and CRM, hopefully you can try and
alleviate that kind of annoying customer experience for your customers.
Got it. Yeah, that's nice. So we've got 3 kind of approaches to doing this, and it's kind of interesting because the first one isn't really an integration approach at all. You could do this today if you don't have a CRM. Then this might be one to look into because, and this was a surprise to me, it turns out Amazon Connect kind of has a CRM built into it. Is that fair? Yeah,
I think that's fair to say. I guess maybe you'd call it a CRM light type functionality, but Amazon Connect has a couple of separate features which work really well together. You've got Amazon Connect customer profiles and Amazon Connect cases. Customer profiles manages, as the name implies, really manages the information about a customer. So things like their contact details, their preferences, their purchase history, if you want. And then you have cases, which you might layer on top, which gives you a mechanism for Connect users to track and manage a given customer's queries and issues sort of within that customer profile.
Okay, nice.
So, for example, we know about Tom. He's an existing customer. We've got his contact details. We know when he last got in touch. That's the profile part. Mm-hmm. And then if Tom contacts us to arrange an exchange on a product that he has, we want to keep a record of that particular exchange process, and that's the case part.
Right, that sounds good. That is enough, isn't it? That's everything you need. It's it's the information about the person, and then all their interactions that you've had with them each time.
Absolutely. And the key bit that you mentioned is having it at the agent's fingertips, providing the agents that real-time access to the up-to-date info. And the nice bit, as we said, is it is all built into that Amazon Connect ecosystem.
So what does that mean? It means that presumably if you always call in on the same phone number, then can it do that for you? Like, can it do that lookup stuff to be like, this phone number is probably this person?
Yeah, exactly. And having it native to Connect, it as you expect, it works quite nicely. There have been some additional call flow blocks that have been introduced, which you can add to your contact flows, and you can do exactly what you said there. You can look up a customer based on their phone number. Mm-hmm. If there's a customer profile record that matches that phone number, you can bring back some of the details within that customer profile, and you can then personalize the routing and the experience based on that information.
Nice. That's cool. So yeah, that's already like, that's a step above, having the two things separated, because it immediately means your agents can start answering the phone with, hello, Tom, or am I speaking to Tom? Because I guess there's some security stuff in there, because like a phone number is not a perfect, marker of security. And I'm sure there's stuff you can layer on top. I know you've done stuff, around authenticating users and all the rest of it. And we might come into that a little bit as sort of more custom integrations. But yeah, I think it's a really good start, isn't it? To be like, confirm your name, confirm your whoever it is, and all the information is there. That's really nice. And I guess it's also knowing immediately the history of things that are happening, right? So a smart agent can quickly scan the list of recent cases and get a feel for probably what it is the person's calling in about.
Yeah, definitely. And you raise a good point, firstly, around the sort of identification and authentication piece. If you can, because you're right, there's still a security aspect to it. If you can abstract that away from the agent and keep it in the IVR, potentially you're saving your agent quite a lot of time on every single call, where they're doing that sort of fairly boring, low effort, but repetitive stuff. If you can put that in the IVR, then that's great. You can save a bunch of time across the whole call center. But also, if you can use the information that you're pulling back in the contact flow to help the customer to self-serve, maybe you can also improve the customer experience. They don't then have to queue for an agent, or you can get some further information from the customer, which can then be passed along to the agent, so that when they're past Tom and they know it's Tom, they know Tom has been authenticated, and they also have a really good idea about what it is that Tom's calling about, and can get right into the sort of value add of helping them out.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, you can see how that could be really useful in like retail examples, knowing that I've just bought something and now I'm calling up. Yeah, it's probably going to be about that, isn't it? So does that mean I go to a different department? Yeah, different group of people. That's really useful. Yeah, absolutely.
And perhaps you can remove some of the press 1 for sales, 2 for service type interactions, where if you start to inform those routing decisions with data from the CRM, like you say, you can say, Tom, we know you've just made a purchase of this product. There's a pretty good chance that you might be calling about that, right? Can we put you through to our post-sales support department to help you out?
Yeah, that's really nice. It immediately cuts out you even needing to talk to the first line of agents, the kind of the ones that figure out what the problem is and what to do about it. Yeah. That's really nice. Yeah, that's cool. So if you do this, is there an extra charge for using Amazon Connect in this way? Like, do you have to buy the customer profile and cases package or something? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, there is extra cost involved. It's relatively low to get started with. So for profiles that only contain standard contact data that's generated by Amazon Connect, so things like your phone number, then if an agent was to add things like a customer name, all of that sort of basic information, that is at no charge.
Okay, that's cool.
Once you start needing to customize it, so adding in custom fields, and we didn't touch on this yet, but you can also import data from third-party apps, like your Salesforce type CRMs.
Okay, let's come back to that. Yep.
Once you start to do that, you do start to pay a small monthly amount per profile stored. Now, I think it's something like around a quarter of a cent per profile, so pretty small in isolation. The slightly more significant cost is when you bring cases into it. So if you've got you're storing your customer profiles, if you then start to want to use the cases part of it to track their interactions, that it's again a sort of per case cost, but it's more significant. It's more like sort of 1.2 cents per case.
Okay. So it's consumption based, but it's something to be aware of, something to think about in your pricing. Okay, you said something about third-party apps and bringing in data from third-party apps. So I guess you've got that flow. It's all in Amazon Connect. So call comes in, you've got those flows that can take place before you get connected to an agent. Is that where you can kind of bring that information in? How does that work?
That's one point that we can touch on definitely. Specifically around sort of using customer profiles, within customer profiles, you can import data from an external CRM. So I mentioned Salesforce. So you can start to take some of the more basic information, bring it into the customer profile in Connect, but then you can. There are some quite nice calculations that are based off the back of that data. As an example, you can run a calculation for whether a caller has called in frequently. So has Tom called in more than, say, 5 times in the last 30 days? So bringing that, the base data that you probably already have in your CRM and starting to use it and run calculations from it in Connect, I think is quite a sweet spot, actually. And I really like those inbuilt calculations that I mentioned.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so you can. Yeah, so you could actually use this anyway, even if you already had a CRM in place. You could actually do this, bring some of that information in, show it to agents. It's kind of means your agents aren't flipping around between Connect and the CRM. Yeah,
definitely. And I think there's a business decision to be made there around what do you want your agent's primary sort of view of the world to be? Do you want it to be in a Salesforce? I keep using the Salesforce example just because we deal with that quite a lot. Do you want it to be within an application, within the CRM application? That's fine. Again, we can talk a bit more about how Connect can integrate sort of right into Salesforce. The other option is, do you want Connect to be your agent's view of the world? If so, you might want to use the Connect agent application, in which you can see your customer profile data and that data can be brought in from Salesforce. So you've got that sort of the interesting different nuances of how the two platforms can interact.
Yeah, that's interesting, because what I suppose it's not just agents that use CRMs as well. So yeah, the Connect might be right for agents, but there might be a million other parts of your organization that need to use the CRM. So you're not going to be switching away from your Salesforce or your something else. This is nice to give agents their own kind of cut down view of the world. I keep talking about people calling in and stuff because that's the sort of canonical contact center use case. But we started off today talking about chats as well as voice. Is this stuff just for voice, or does it work across, different sort of modalities as well?
Yeah, it can work across any of your channels where I guess the driver is that you need some piece of information that customer has provided, which you can then use to drive that lookup into the CRM. So, for example, if we take the chat channel, you might, if a customer starts a chat on your website, maybe they've authenticated, so they've put in their email and some password details. That email address might be a great data point from which you can dive into your CRM. But equally, any of your channels, really, if you can get that point of data from which to drive the data dip, then you're good to go.
Cool. I think you did a proof of concept recently at POC doing exactly that, actually, I think, didn't you? Of like taking the data from a website, making a profile from it.
Yeah.
And then
that's
cool.
We had, there was another quite a nice one where we used a customer's input into a web form, took that information and generated, if necessary, a new customer profile, and then generated a case off the back of it. And rather than it being in the chat or the voice channel, you have this other channel called tasks in Amazon Connect, where you can just sort of assign units of work to an agent. And this was quite a nice way of taking what was quite a manual onboarding process initially. So a customer would create or input into a web form. It would get sent as an email to a customer service agent who would then deal with it manually. We can start to automate that process. We can take the information from the form, create the profile, create a case off the back of it, and inject this task into a queue, which can be dealt with by an agent, like a chat or a voice contact could be. But also you get the nice things like being able to report on it, so seeing your volumes of tasks and how long it's taken an agent to deal with them.
That's nice. So you use the same agents for multiple, essentially answering questions from different places.
Yeah,
that's
potentially.
cool.
Yeah.
All right. I feel like this is all really cool. It sounds quite complicated to set up. Maybe I guess it starts from you needing to know what you want your experience to look like first. That's probably the hardest part, actually, is just mapping out, probably on a whiteboard or something, exactly what that customer flow should look like. And then from there, I guess there's stuff in the Amazon Connect UI to make it to kind of go through. Is that fair?
Yeah. Profiles and cases in themselves are actually very easy to set up. It's slightly more than just a couple of tick boxes, but it's a very quick process to set them up. And once you have enabled, let's say, customer profiles, Connect will start to put together in the background those profiles. So it will keep a record of each of the phone numbers that's called in, which the agents can then expand on the data within those profiles. The other thing that I don't think we've mentioned is that because you have that link between the customer profile and the customer's interaction history, that's something else that you can present to the agent. So you can see a list of all the times that the customer has called in, and you can link to things like previous call recordings. So if an agent wanted to get a really good detailed history of how we've interacted with that particular customer, they can do that from the customer profile data.
That's nice. That's nice. With my enterprisey hat on, I think this sounds great. Customer data, phone numbers, identifiable information. I've got questions. So where where does the data like live? If I set up an Amazon Connect instance and I turn on, I click the boxes for Connect profiles, customer profiles and Connect cases, and my agents start typing in names and addresses and stuff like that. Where is that data living?
Yeah, so the data it's held within that AWS account. So it's you create a customer profiles domain, and the data is associated to that within an account. So you've got the usual considerations around security. You've got the AWS's IAM service, Identity and Access Management. Always recommend that you look really carefully at that and who can get to the data, who can sort of run the API calls that allow you to get to the data. The data it's always encrypted at rest. You can either use your own customer managed key, or AWS have a key management service as well that you can use.
Nice.
It is possible for multiple Connect instances to use the data from a single customer profiles domain, but it does need to be in the same AWS account.
Okay, cool. No, that sounds good. Sounds like they've thought about it anyway. It's like standard stuff, but important stuff.
Yeah, and we get those kinds of questions when we're doing our customers' architectural review boards, that kind of thing. There will generally be some questions around data security, and yes, it can get somewhat complicated in terms of what's the PII, the personal identifiable information, and which system of record is storing it. And because obviously you've got potentially a CRM system, which the contact center might not own as such, but then you might be bringing some data into the contact center. So yeah, loads of considerations around that, which we could help you out with if necessary. Yeah,
no, that sounds really good. Okay, we've done the built-in Amazon Connect profiles. It's going long today. We've done a good 20 minutes talking about it.
I feel like there's still loads and loads we could talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. A future episode maybe, but we're going long this week.
You've got to love our ambition though, right? So we started off last week as a sort of general intro to Amazon Connect, and we've jumped straight in there to
diving straight off the deep end. Yeah. That's it. Scuba gear required. So we said there were 3 different ways you could do this CRM integration piece. And so we've covered one of them. So the next one, the second one, you guess. So this might be more of your maybe slightly larger organization that already has a CRM in place and they want to keep using it. There are ways to join those worlds together, right? There are integrations between existing CRMs and Amazon Connect.
Yeah, there are. And there are some really good ones that are either sort of vendor provided or AWS provided, or there are a whole bunch of partner integrations as well. Just focusing on the sort of vendor and AWS provided ones. I've mentioned Salesforce a few times now, just because everyone knows it's a fairly big player in CRM. But Salesforce do have a good pre-built integration, or kind of 2 in a way. So they have there's one called the CTI adapter, which it's a native connector to integrate Connect and Salesforce. It provides you with a couple of things. So it provides you with a pre-built set of Lambda functions, a package of Lambda functions that allows you to do your stuff like we mentioned in the contact flow, calling into Salesforce with one bit of information and saying, hey, Salesforce, do you have information about this phone number that you can give to me?
Mm-hmm. Nice.
The other bit that it gives you is it provides your agents with a version of Amazon Connect's CCP soft phone embedded within Salesforce. We mentioned that kind of business decision earlier on around, do I want to have my agents living in Salesforce or do they want to live in Amazon Connect?
Yep.
If that decision is you want them to live in Salesforce, then you can really nicely embed the call controls within Salesforce using that package.
That's nice. Yeah, that's cool.
The other one to mention is that Salesforce have the kind of their own offering, more of a packaged offering called Service Cloud Voice. Service Cloud Voice, it gives a similar set of capabilities to the CTI adapter, perhaps aimed a bit more at those who want to sort of manage as much as possible through Salesforce. So if you've really made that investment into Salesforce is my CRM, it's where I want my agents to live, Service Cloud Voice is really sort of tightly integrated. Okay. It would tend to use more of the Salesforce ecosystem. So things like if you're delving into AI, ML, it might look to use Salesforce's Einstein rather than the AWS version. But yeah, there's some sort of grey area between the two, and you can kind of mix and match.
It's an integration for people that do Salesforce. And
Definitely,
if you're one of those people, you know you're one of those people. And if you don't know about those people, don't worry about it. But Salesforce is its own thing. It's ginormous, right? It's its own ecosystem of development and packages and you can do anything you want in there. But it is very much its own thing, I think.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah.
That's cool.
There are a couple of others. So I'm aware of and haven't used these so much, but you've got Zoho is another CRM which offers a pre-built connector called Phone Bridge, which on the face of it appears to offer similar things. So you have that package of being able to have Connect, call into Zoho and bring back data. And you can also surface the call and the call controls within your CRM. So the capabilities are broadly speaking the same.
Yeah.
A couple of others to mention. So you've got Zendesk and ServiceNow.
Okay.
Perhaps that's moving more towards the sort of service management and ticketing, but they all have those kind of pre-built connections.
That's good to know. It's worth checking then if you use an existing CRM or even, like you say, like ServiceNow. I guess it's in those companies' interests to make these connectors for Connect, if that makes sense. Because it just drives, it makes their application stickier as well. So, and maybe go talk to your CRM provider if they don't, because it kind of makes sense. So I think that's interesting. There's a third use case as well, which is maybe where you want to take your CRM provider that doesn't have their own connector yet, which is you could do it all yourself. So if you've got an in-house CRM system, or got a CRM system that doesn't want to work with with Connect or doesn't work with Connect, you can kind of go your own road. If you've got a development team, I guess there's APIs, there's SDKs you can use. How does that? How does that work? Like, because based on last week's conversation, we've got Connect. I know about call flows and different flows you can do there. How does that integrate with, I guess, the rest of the AWS ecosystem?
Yeah, good question. And I think you kind of touched upon it in a way with, you mentioned sort of APIs and SDKs. So really high-level generalizations here, but it should be possible to create some kind of integration between Connect and another third-party CRM if we can get some level of access to the data in the CRM via API calls.
Yep.
Back to the contact flow example that we talked about earlier. If you've got that piece of customer data, like a phone number, which you're going to have for most voice interactions in Connect, it should be quite straightforward to use a Lambda function in real time in our call flow to make that API call to the CRM to see if there are any customer records with that phone number, and if there are, to bring that data back and do something about it.
So it is as straightforward as you need to be able to access your CRM from a Lambda function, like whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I guess that's about the most basic level of integration. And after that, there's probably a load of custom development, as you alluded to, if you want to do things like surfacing call controls in your CRM, like we mentioned for some of the other ones that they do with their pre-built connectors, or to do things like enabling screen pop of the customer data. And we do have some experience of doing that at Cloud Interact within the dev team, and have also seen some pretty good partner implementations. For example, there was one, and here's another big CRM that we haven't mentioned yet, Microsoft Dynamics. Some big enterprise customers using that. I'm not aware of a sort of native connector provided by AWS or Microsoft at the moment for that. But yeah, we know it's possible to dive into Dynamics within the call flow and then to provide the call controls and your screen pop of information within the CRM window.
That's interesting. And you could still use some of the stuff in customer profiles, right? If you've got a completely third-party CRM that you want to be your system of record, that's where you want the data to be. I guess you can still get the data and just bring it into profiles and display it to agents that way.
Yeah, definitely. And in a way, I think I mentioned earlier, but that for me is a bit of a sweet spot. So it's quite likely that a lot of customers we talk to these days, they will have an established CRM system. We're not going to change that, and we don't want to. But perhaps we take a feed of data from that CRM, and then we can do the bits that I mentioned within Connect customer profiles using those calculated attributes to, and I stole this phrase from AWS's website, but to transform that customer data into actionable data points. And I used the example about is the customer a frequent caller? So we've got all of their details in the CRM. We surface some basic bits of information within Connect customer profiles. When they call in, we've got those calculated attributes where we can tell whether Tom is a frequent caller, whether he's called us lots of times this month, or even things like what was the length of their call last time? Was it a really short call? Is it likely that they're calling back in a short space of time because they've got some unresolved business that we need to attend to? And can we sort of try and prioritize them accordingly? So I think there's some really cool stuff that you could do around that, taking the data from the CRM, using those calculated attributes that Connect customer profiles gives you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we're seeing companies revisit CRM integration a little bit, aren't we? I think they're focusing on much more on the customer experience. So it's now much more about getting the data so I can make my agents as efficient as possible. They're kind of coming back for a second round to be like, how do we actually use this data to make the best possible customer experience as well? It certainly feels like that the customer experience is something that's been a real focus for companies, last few years.
Yeah, and I think there's still a lot of work to be done, and we mentioned about the various different integrations that can help that. There's so much data available within your CRM system. It wouldn't hurt to just sort of try and use a bit of that held data to slightly improve on the customer experience and know your customers and try and appreciate why they're calling and understand their needs a bit better.
Absolutely. You must get frustrated, like, just, you know what I mean, like dealing with the day-to-day life of, like, just being in a queue or something. Do you get the, like, this could be so much better? Like,
yeah, I think, and we talk about it amongst our colleagues, right? And I'm sure we've all got our own tales of slightly poor customer service. But when you know what is there and what's available, yeah, it's hard not to say, I think you could do that slightly better. Having said that, appreciate there's often a need to move from a legacy platform onto a new platform and not immediately deal with that sort of optimization piece. You might just do a lift and shift, and you kind of you take what's on the old platform and re-platform it. And yeah, genuinely, there's a business need for that sometimes. It's just nice if you can fit in that optimization piece as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, this has been really, really interesting. Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you all for listening. Today, we talked at length about CRM integration strategies. Next week on ACP, we're going to be diving deep to the newly updated communication widget, and we're going to find out lots about that with particular emphasis on some of its newer voice and video features. And we have a special guest joining us as well. So be sure to subscribe in your favourite podcast player for that. That way you won't miss it. Whilst you're there, we would love it if you would rate and review us, because as a new podcast, if you have colleagues that you think would benefit from this content, please let them know. To find out more about how Cloud Interact can help you on your contact centre journey, visit cloudinteract.io. We're wrapping this call up now, and we'll connect with you next time.